How long have you been holding it all together, trying to manage your child's behavior only to feel the connection slipping away? Today on Single Parent Success Stories, Katherine Sellery reveals why we need connection over correction. It's not about fixing them, it's about owning our patterns and boundaries so our children actually feel safe. So if you're ready to stop reacting and start responding, this is your sign. Listen to the full episode now. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Give the woman in your life something that truly matters, or better yet, give it to yourself. The gift inside is for every woman who spent decades being everything to everyone else. It's time to remember who you are and rediscover your happiness. This isn't just a book, it's a permission to put yourself first again. Available now, because the best gift you can give is helping someone find themselves. Yes, Katherine Sellery. She is a powerhouse of emotional intelligence and transformational communication. She is also a 3-time TEDx speaker, founder of the Conscious Parenting Revolution, and a trusted voice for parents, educators, and leaders seeking to create more connected, respectful, and empowered relationships at home and in the workplace. With over 2 decades of experience teaching the tools that build trust and dismantle power struggles, Katherine is here to shift the conversation around how we communicate, lead, and live. Welcome, Katherine. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's so nice to be here, Irina. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So please share with us, who is Katherine outside of your bio?
Katherine? Yes. I wear a bunch of different hats, but I think the one that's most relevant to our conversation today is the one around the conscious parenting revolution that I started about 20-something years ago. My son's 30, my daughter's 26, just turned 26. So they're about 5 years apart. And when our son was, a great kid, wonderful, but there were always these things that would come up with regard to discipline that kind of left us stumped. And we just started looking to see how to discipline our kids and wanting to break out of, just sort of ingrained patterns, reactivity, looking for a different approach than the one that we knew so well from our own upbringing. And we knew the pros and the cons. And, we had our problems with the way that we were raised. I'm sure everybody probably has that experience. Like it's not it was all great. Some of it was great. Some of it was not so great. And I guess wanting to improve on what we delivered. So we started taking classes, my husband and I. We started taking classes, and it was truly transformative, not just around parenting and communication and parenting context, but it also was transformational in terms of all our communication. And I think the trainings that we were exposed to at that time, and then literally, just spent years honing my craft, if you will. And I came out of the more of a not confrontational, not in a great way, more like a litigator background. And I moved into really looking at mediation and became a mediator. And so I really approach it from a communication perspective and look at how to call out our unconscious bias that informs a lot of the way that we respond to the behaviors that we don't like, and the ways that then activates retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, the proverbial 3 R's, which is the foundation of Thomas Gordon's work. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 3 times for all of this knowledge around the idea that when you use a controlling form of discipline, you activate the 3 R's. And then Dr. Louise Porter, who I wrote together the program I run, which is the Guidance Approach to Parenting. So Louise is 17, 18 books. I can't even remember, but she's a child educational psychologist that we began to collaborate together. And she said, I think what we're doing is beyond any one of the trainings that either of us have had around parenting. Why don't we collaborate and put together something that gives parents the most support, and kind of covers all the angles, so that we're looking at not just developmentally, like what is appropriate. Are my expectations okay or not okay? Like, are my expectations wildly out of what would be normally expected of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year, whatever the age is? I think parents actually have unrealistic expectations of little children, and that their expectations are that they're developmentally way beyond where they actually are. And it's not so much that we need to get the child to change their behavior, but that we need to get ourselves to have a benchmark and understand, like, what's okay for me to expect, what's completely unrealistic. And if I'm getting upset about my unrealistic expectations, I just need to change my expectations rather than punish the child for not being able to meet unrealistic expectations. That's kind of a baseline, but a really important one, because I think a lot of parents just don't think through or really even have an educational psychologist perspective of what's okay to expect and what's not okay. That's kind of a long answer. I hope I got us somewhere close to where you were hoping we would be.
No, totally, totally. Children don't come with instruction manuals. We kind of figure out as we go along.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And you're so right. We have so much expectations, and oftentimes we are dealing with so many things all at once. And when child does something, we immediately get triggered instead of kind of silencing that part of ourselves and understanding, developmentally, maybe child is not there yet for us to expect that kind of response.
And
But
here,
yeah.
let's go one layer deeper. Not only is that true, but in addition to that, we have a little inner child, and that little inner child is already like always on guard, knowing what was okay, what was not okay for it. And we bring that little inner child with us in our adult bodies as we parent. And that little one is terrified that if our little one starts to cross the lines that we learned were not okay, that we're allowing them to be in a situation that's unsafe for them. So in a sort of bizarre way, our overreactions are actually triggered by our little child inside that wants to protect this child from those powers that be that aren't even in the room anymore. It's so illogical, but that is the nature of our emotional world, is that logic is not really the guiding light there. It's not about being logical.
Can you walk us through one of the tools or practices you teach that help reduce power struggles at home
Sure.
or at work?
Absolutely. I think I'll talk about the autonomous child. So in my training, I help parents understand that self-esteem for this kid and that kid may come from different places. Predominantly, like the bigger percentage, and I've heard different, statistics, but let's play with this one. 70% of kids want to please you. They actually don't want to disappoint you. They don't want to see your angry face. They don't want to see your upset. And so when they even see that on your face, they self-adjust. And the reason they do that is because how they feel about themselves is tied to how you feel about me. So belongers, and they're easier kids to raise because they're so connected to the world around them. And the danger, of course, with those kids is that they're more concerned about your reaction than speaking their truth. And that they will learn to betray themselves and not stand up for their own inner sense of things, not to mention the power differential. And again, we're going to take this on, we're just going to go from little kids all the way up to young adults. And you can go beyond that, because the conditioning we get to silence ourselves doesn't just stop in childhood. And so we have to be really careful with these belongers, that they learn that it's okay, actually, that other people in the room have a different perspective, and that they don't always have to surrender to the person with the most power in the room and just forget their own voice and what they wanted to express. Now, on the other extreme, you've got the autonomous children. Books are written about these kids. The spirited child, and they're often called the difficult child. And these kids are prepared to risk your disapproval. So they actually will say the thing. And there's absolutely nothing you can do from a controlling parenting perspective to get them to change their behavior. That doesn't mean that you can't punish them or send them to timeout for the rest of their lives or ground them in their room. And they'll respond by saying, great, I don't even like dessert. Fine, I'll just go to my room. And they'll stay there and they'll act as though they're completely delighted about it, which takes away and usually ignites like a kind of feeling in a parent of, whoa, why can't I get you to be more cooperative or to pick up after yourself? Or, any of the millions of things that generally are behind a parent's angst with their kids, right? A lot of it's about harmony, communication, ease, and these disruptions are difficult for everybody. So this is evidence-based. A controlling form of discipline will, in an autonomous child, activate retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, the 3 R's. They will also act in a very obvious way, usually, a very obvious way. You'll either see the explosion, the slam door, the I hate you, mommy, I hate you, daddies, the whole thing. Or they'll just draw a line in the sand and they won't give you an overreaction. It will infuriate you. You'll feel as though they don't care. And there is this huge power struggle and resentment flow that's developing. The parent may even start to think very negatively of the child. They're so manipulative. They're always out to get me. They never want to take, they don't care about anybody else. They're narcissists. I heard that the other day. And I'm like, woo, boy, these labels that we start to throw when we're in discomfort are dangerous because we then respond in our behavior and how even our warmth, how we feel about them is being actually manipulated and controlled by our mind. The mind is a dangerous neighborhood and you never want to go there alone. So the mind will cough up all kinds of explanations to make the other person wrong about my experience. So with the belonger kids, they may just do what you wanted them to, and they will please you and not please themselves. You could look at it that way. And they're paying a heavy price for it, but you're going to pay a price for it too later because the resentment flow is delayed. It'll come up later, like maybe the teen years or maybe, late high school or maybe even early high school. By college, you'll be fired. So the resentment flow is probably like our biggest thing to look out for and to even understand it in these terms. And then to begin to wonder about, am I communicating in a way that allows the other person to feel like there's an invitation to let them tell me what's going on for them too? So in nonviolent communication in the world of NVC, which is really the foundation of the work, we are always concerned that we're expressing ourselves with language that feels like a request and not a demand, with language that's always opening a door around the resistance that we might be getting, so that we're looking at the resistance not as disrespect, but resistance as, oh, there's something in them they're saying yes to when they say no to me. And what is that? So it evokes curiosity rather than getting our noses out of joint. And all of this, what's required for all of this is that we are kind of looking at time and the kinds of time that we spend with our kids as closeness time, fun time, developing our relationship time, cultivating the relationship. There is a rule of thumb, 20 minutes a day, one-on-one time, child directed. That's not about doing homework or cleaning their room or packing their bag or any of this sort of like millions of tasks. But it's really about, let's go do something fun. What do you want to do? You want to go for a walk in the park. You want to go out for an ice cream. You want to make a craft together. What would you like to do? Let's just hang out. I just miss you. So if we're taking care of that, almost all of our problems in the other areas are activity time together. All of the other areas are really much better based on how well we're taking care of the one-on-one time. So if this area is a deficit, then when we're doing activities where deadlines, getting out of the house, making it to the bus stop, all of these other times are impacted by the fact that the closeness is not being cultivated continually, daily, at least 20 minutes a day, one-on-one time. Sometimes you need more. And after a while, you may need less. it's kind of like a bank account where you've built up so much love, connection, trust that it flows into these other types of time. And the other type of time is how well are you taking care of yourself? So the time for self-care. So if you're not taking care of you and you're explosive, half the time that's because you're needing self-care. And it's coming out as somebody else is bad or it's their fault for making you feel that way. So that leads us to the road of, are we being responsible for our feelings, or are we stuck somewhere in blame? Are other people responsible for how we feel? Are we even using language like you make me feel? Because if you were doing that, that's the most dangerous place in the world for us to be communicating from a place where we're not taking responsibility for our own feelings. Like, I have a feeling, but it's not your fault. And, if there were 10 people in the room, we'd all have 10 different feelings. So let's start being responsible for the feelings as the clue that leads us to understanding what the underlying unmet need is, so that we can speak about our feelings as, I'm having these feelings because my needs for such and such are not being met. And I'm really trying to meet my needs. And in this conversation, I'm having difficulty doing.
Totally. You're so right about the self-care bit, because we cannot expect a lemon juice out of an orange.
Then you model self-care for your kids. And then they don't feel guilty or bad about taking care of themselves.
Yeah. And that one-on-one time is so special, because I think doesn't matter how old you are, we all want personal attention, and we all want this connection. And when it's not there, it's gonna have a negative effect on all areas of your life, not just.
Well, negative attention is better than no attention. So if they aren't getting the positive attention to cultivate the relationship and feel like they matter, then all of a sudden you begin to see all kinds of negative attention, because negative attention is better than no attention. If I get your attention when this happens, then I guess that's better than nothing.
Totally. Yes. I noticed with when my little one was born and I had an older child, and the older child started making all the noises, like as they come down the stairs.
Totally.
Because now there is this new little one who is more focused.
More important, seems to be, you love them more than me, the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
which is why we can't minimize how important we are to our kids, and how they need to feel like they're really important to us too. And so, you add more children into the mix and it becomes even more so. And I've had so many clients where they're mad because there's somebody acting out, and they get the acting out child is the one that gets, quote, disciplined. And because the predominant mindset universally is that discipline is about making the person who has the behavior you don't like, suffer for it. So that the idea is, if you make them suffer for it, it won't repeat. And we've missed the road that is saying, okay, yes, we don't want this behavior to repeat, but the behavior isn't the problem. It's a symptom of a problem. And if we can address the underlying unmet need or the primary issue, then this secondary issue, which is the presenting problem, it'll go away. If you don't address the underlying unmet need, if you don't address the primary issue, then instead of it going away, now what was actually a cry for help, the cry for help becomes punished. The underlying unmet need isn't met. And now the child not only has their original feeling of, I don't matter, but now I really don't matter. You don't see me. You don't understand me. And I'm banished to my room, and you've probably taken my friendship dates away and anything pleasurable, because you think that's how I'm going to solve my inner pain of feeling like I don't matter. It is so far-fetched that will ever get there. Instead, you're two ships passing in the night, and this one's screaming for help, praying you see how much pain they're in because they don't know where they stand anymore now that this one's arrived. And the response is so tragic. It ends up creating a divide and a deeply wounded child.
Yeah. What's one small shift someone can make right now to create more connection and less conflict in their lives?
When you're thinking about doing that thing, whatever it is that you normally do, your pattern of responding to the behaviors that you don't like, take a step back, take a deep breath, put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can come up into this space differently without being reactive to the tragic expression of this other person's unmet needs. When a kid is drowning, they don't do it politely. And it can be all of those things, the kicking of the dog, the I hate my mommy, I hate my dad, I hate my sister, I hate this family, I hate everything. And it's really hard to hear. And then you want to get into arguing about this way of presenting. And instead of doing it, take a step back, take a deep breath, and allow yourself the time to process your experience of the explosion that just came out at you, because you're having a visceral experience of it. There's no doubt about it. And allow it to pass through your system so that you can take that deep breath of oxygen, look at this person and say, instead of, how dare you, go to your room, instead of that, say, wow, there's something in you that's really upset right now. And I'd like to know more about that. And now you're going for connection rather than correction. And if you start to put connection more important than correction, you'll learn to do the self-care stuff, to take the deep breath, to be able to move past the presenting problem and go deeper into connection. And just that one thing may evoke out of this other person tears and a meltdown of you being able to compassionately, easily provide empathy. Whereas the way they originally presented, you just wanted to create distance and punish. And if we could make that one switch, your life would change.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes we forget to breathe. And that's such a powerful mechanism to allow us to reset however we were feeling, to get present, to get connected to our inner core, and then ask maybe a higher self, how would higher self respond in this situation, in this conflict? What do we want to create in this particular moment, instead of, I know we're all frustrated, especially like, let's say you have a busy day and you're thinking about 25 gazillion things. And
I know. And then you've got somebody who refuses to put their shoes on and get in the car. And it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. You're just like, oh my God, of all the things, can you just put on your shoes? It's a tough job, this parenting stuff. I put it above any other job. I mean, I think a lot of times in traditional sort of families, one of them gets up and goes to work and the other one's like, you have no idea how I wish that was me. Right? You know, I mean, there's just, unless you've got that oxygen mask, that person who gets to walk out the door, and usually they know it. They know that they're getting it off. They're getting off easy. You know, they get to come back and everybody's like, oh yeah, you know, mom's home, dad's home, whoever it was that walked out the door, and you're slayed on the ground, exhausted. You know, you've lived through everything. And it's like, oh my God, what about me? Why don't I ever get that part of you?
That's true. I think we need school for parents, so they know what to expect before becoming parents.
I truly believe that. I've even had clients who have come to my trainings. I have a 90-day parenting. It's actually a family reset, parenting reset, and they'll come before they even have kids because they are, I guess, really thinking it through. Like, how am I going to do this differently? You know, it's usually about, I don't want to just slip into the pattern. You know, it's a well-worn pattern and it's pretty hard not to just go into it. I mean, habits are hard to break. And that's why transgenerational trauma, you see passing through the ages because it's like a well-worn rut in the road. It's hard not to just slip into it. It takes so much conscious awareness of how you're showing up to be able to do it differently.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of patterns, how can we start identifying the patterns that are no longer serving us or our children?
Yeah. So, you know, for me, I noticed in how I was experiencing raising children was that it was usually the sensitivity to feeling that I was being shut out, that I wasn't a confidant anymore, that there was less sharing. So for me, that was kind of like my window into, how have I been in this relationship that's caused this little breakdown over here? And hopefully you catch it while it's a little breakdown. Because if it becomes a huge breakdown, and it happens, right? I've had clients where they haven't really had an authentic, close conversation for 10 years, 15 years, right? I mean, the closeness is gone. And we're talking about when they say they began working with me and in learning how to heal relationships, because healing and reconciliation is a lot of the work I do, that these conversations can go all the way back to like, well, don't you remember, in third grade? And it's like, oh my God, did I do that in third grade? I mean, if let's just say parenting is an opportunity for us to beat ourselves up constantly, right? Unless we really understand self-love, self-compassion, and we are not holding ourselves to some unrealistic idea of, I'm going to be perfect at this, we can get really down on ourselves. And so, that's why I think the self-compassion, self-love, forgiveness. And, I like to talk about parents putting up signs in your home that say, if you didn't make a mistake today, you're not learning. And to just get it out there. Like, I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. All of us in this house are going to make mistakes. Let's just make that okay. All right. Can we make that okay? And it's such a healthy thing to do because obviously it's unrealistic to expect anything but that. But there's I don't know, it's not implicit. Maybe it's implicit, explicit. It's one of the two where it is being communicated that mistakes are not acceptable. In fact, they're so not acceptable in this family that we're going to punish you for them. Which is again why rewards and punishments are a failure as a modality. I'm so passionate about it. I know that it seems like, maybe you get a change in the behavior, therefore it's working. But if you're not asking yourself why they're changing their behavior when you did the threat or you took the thing away, and if you can't realize it's because they're afraid of you or afraid of what you're going to do to them, if you're not concerned about why that is the foundation of your parenting style, then I'm concerned. Because if fear is the cornerstone of why you get behavioral change, then that's not good enough. And I want you to ask yourself, why is the change happening? And is that reason why congruent with my values? Do I think it's valuable that people change their behavior because they're afraid of me? No, I don't think that's valuable. Would I like them to change their behavior because they're considerate of my feelings and needs? Yes, I think that's really important. I think it's important to teach consideration and for people to change and adjust because they are not just thinking about themselves and caring about their own needs, but they're also caring about everybody's needs in the room. And you don't teach that through fear. You might get the behavioral change, but not for the reasons you want it. We need to ask why.
Totally. I think why is very important, and not the superficial one, but the deep down. There is a 7 why exercise when we do something about something. What is the deep innermost core of why we do that?
Yes, exactly.
What are some hidden patterns you see parents repeating that they don't even realize are rooted in their own upbringing?
Yeah. I think that one of the patterns has to do with this idea that if you don't act appropriately, then I'm going to withdraw my love. And this is a pattern that probably you learned because somebody did it to you. And it's so terrifying for a child to feel like they have lost you when they made their behavioral mistake. So I was walking through a Target. You guys, depending on where your audience is, may not know it. It's like a big retailer. And I saw a mom with their little boy who is probably about 3 or 4. And they're going through Target and she's so hurt, upset, mad. And her little boy is screaming, please talk to me. I mean, it was so unbearable for me. I had to leave the store. She had this little guy that she was so mad at. I'm sure he screwed up. We can all say, absolutely. Nobody doubts he screwed up. And she was so mad about it. I think we can say triggered, that her way to punish him was to just ignore him, make him invisible. And he freaked out. I've seen this over and over again. I don't know. Maybe you have too. And it's a pattern. And it happened because I think it's how she experienced also, being taught that behavior is not okay. I'm not a behavioralist. I don't think so much about how do I change this one behavior. It's more about how do I cultivate the ecosystem for us to feel so close and so loving and so concerned about each other's well-being that when something weird happens, like you act in a way that's so out of character for you, I don't go into, and it never even occurs to me to go into the land of you're a brat and start calling you names. Instead, I go into, God, that's really weird. Honey, what's going on? That's so out of character for you. I'm sensing there's something that really hurts. And that's just because my ecosystem is different. You know, an ecosystem that's based on what will the neighbors think and that's concerned with presenting a certain sort of face to the public and to the world is not so much concerned about where I'm coming from. It's concerned that I show up and look a certain way. I mean, I grew up with a mother who literally said, what will the neighbors think? I mean, so I feel like that was the modality. If you were to say, like, what was your family of origins like, you know, approach to parenting? Well, what would the neighbors think? And I always used to ponder, God, I have no idea. Wow, but I know, I guess this is not okay. I mean, I always just try to figure out, I don't know, like, who is the neighbor? You know, so funny.
Yeah, totally from my mother as well. What would the
really? Did you get what will the neighbors think?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it was a shaming device, like shame on you.
Yes.
You know, we're going to be the talk of the town.
You're supposed to, you know how we all have expectations of what life is supposed to be. You go to school, you start a family, you start a career, and you're supposed to do those milestones in accepted principles because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what
I know. And again, it's back to safety, right? It's back to safety. I want to keep you safe. And the thing that keeps you safe is to not rile the neighbors. I mean, the intent behind it is always.
Meanwhile, neighbors are busy living their life. They don't even care.
They haven't even noticed. They don't even know we live next door.
And you base your whole life on what somebody else might think.
Yeah. How terrifying is that, right? I mean, I now, you know, one of the deep parts of my training was with Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. And Marshall says, he's passed, but one of the keystones of his training is what other people think about me is none of my business. And that is freedom. The freedom to stop giving other people power and control over how I think about me. And, you know, when we develop kids that are more worried about what other people think about them, then we have essentially established a foundation to their self-esteem that is the most fragile of the self-esteem models. What other people think about me is how I think about me, puts all the power and control about how I think about me in somebody else's hands, who may not think nice things about me for really completely unfounded reasons. And so my way to help and support my child to have a core to their being is to make them more concerned with sensing into and understanding who they are and having an understanding of what they think is valuable so that they can always sense into, I am kind, I am considerate, I am a caring person, I show up that way. I look at the world as how can I make a contribution? Am I living up to my own standards? Am I disappointed in me? Am I proud of me? Because the more you have that mechanism in place, the more that they're less concerned with the outer voices and maybe a few of the outer voices, but not thousands or casts of thousands are going to be given the right to affect my self-concept. So when parents develop praise as a way to reward their children, it's actually the foundation of low self-esteem. If you want to lower your kids' self-esteem, praise them. Create within them this idea that they feel good about themselves when other people praise them, and they feel bad about themselves when other people criticize them. It's all the foundation of an external locus of causality, which is what rewards and punishments is. It's all about what I'm going to do to you in order to evoke something out of you that I want, rather than, God, what's going on for you that this behavior has arisen, which is the internal locus of causality, wondering about people's inner world and recognizing that what arises is coming from within. And if there's a deep deficit within, then what arises is pretty tragic on the out. And so if we go to the inner world, we begin to support and help with emotional regulation.
Yes. You're so right. Thank you. Thank you. How do we start parenting in alignment with our values when we spend years just trying to get through the day?
It's so true. We're back to resources again and having enough resources so that we're not depleted. And what does that mean? Building in, recognizing when we're getting snappy and being able to say to the people in the room, I'm feeling depleted. I'm recognizing that when I'm depleted, I get snappy. I'm snappy right now with you. I don't feel good about that, right? So there's my value. I don't like and appreciate that when I'm depleted, I take it out on people around me. And so I want to do over. I'm going to go and give myself some nourishment, which in this case is I'm going to go for a little walk around the block. Now you can do that with kids that are older. With kids that are younger, you might say, I'm going to actually make myself a cup of tea. I'm going to sit down and read my favorite book, my favorite newspaper. I'm going to call my best friend. I'm going to call somebody that makes me laugh, or I'm going to put on my favorite show that makes me laugh. In fact, I'm going to do that. If you want to do it with me, come on over. Let's laugh together. Let's take a laugh break. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we do, right? The minute we blow it, we acknowledge it. We call it out. I feel like I'm not parenting the way I really wish I was. I feel badly about that. I had a mom speak to me recently about her grown daughter who has little kids and she's snapping at them. And she's really mad that her daughter would do that. And I said, well, of course, nobody wants anybody to snap at their kids. And I also want to just call out that we all know and adore this mom. And I just see it as a cry for help. So again, can I get out of my judgment of the mom that's just crumbling and already is judging herself and probably feels pretty badly about herself? Like she doesn't need everybody else heaping on a bunch of judgment. She could use a lifeline though. A lifeline might be good where somebody could say, I see you. I understand. You feel badly about that. That was really hard for you because it violated your values. Let's get you nourished. Let's get you supported so that you can go back and clean it up, right? And more than that, you can change so that you recognize when you're getting depleted and you stop before you start snapping and you start giving yourself the support you need so that you can be the mom you want or the dad you want to be.
Yeah, totally. So being present with yourself and recognizing where you are and
yes,
something is missing, but actually feeling that and expressing that, being vulnerable and open. Like you said, it's okay. We all make mistakes.
Yeah. So just get that up on the wall again. Yeah.
Was
so
there
true.
any book on the subject that you can recommend that maybe was transformational
Well, I mean,
in your life?
I have my own book, which is 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those 7 strategies everybody would love. So I give it away. You can go to freeparentingbook.com and get that. And it's a good place to start. I have a really extensive bibliography as well. So you can comb the bibliography to get tons and tons of source material because there's lots of great material out there.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
I mean, obviously I want them to love themselves just the way they are, warts and all. And so that I got that gift. My dad used to say, I love you, warts and all. And it deeply ingrained inside of me so that I feel like I got a really strong self-concept because that, I had the one who I loved and adored who was really concerned about what the neighbors would think. And then I had the other one who was like, I love you, warts and all. In other words, I don't even think he thought about the neighbors. Like they couldn't have been more different. So yeah, I love you, warts and all. I think that's great. I'd say it every day to my kids so that they can love their warts too. Right. Because I think it's so important because we know epidemics of self-harm, right? Children who are harming themselves because obviously they can't love their warts. In fact, they're having trouble loving themselves, period. It's got to be the foundation. I love you, warts and all. And deeply, deeply, deeply support that, as well as I want to hear what you have to say. And I want you to feel safe to say anything, even if you think it's going to make me upset. Because I want us to recognize that teaching our kids to please us is dangerous. It's so dangerous it's very difficult for them if they learn that they have to please mom or dad, or that, that somehow they're responsible for how we feel. I mean, those are all lies. I'm responsible for how I feel. Now, I can't put that responsibility on anybody else's shoulders, but yet I learned, I had to unlearn that I wasn't responsible for other people's feelings. I think a lot of us learned that somehow it was my responsibility to make mom happy or dad happy, or it's me that's making them unhappy. I mean, it's poison. And so that's the other one that I think is so critical, is that they know that they can't make me happy or sad, that those are my domain, and that they are responsible for their happiness. It's nobody else's job. It's too hard. And to not be looking for something outside of them to make them happy. It really is Viktor Frankl. The freedom comes from within. And so cultivating that, again, internal locus of causality, which again leads us back to the beginning of, and we aren't doing that if we're using rewards and punishments. We're doing the opposite, and it's dangerous.
Totally. What kind of advice can you share with single parents?
Everything's harder, and it's all the same at the same time, right? It's all harder and it's all the same. I don't know, if this is relevant, but it might be for some of your audience, is that, I've had a number of many, many, many clients who are parenting on their own. And they're also dealing with an ex. And a lot of times they're having to navigate what happens at that other person's home, and then what's going to happen when they come here. It can be very difficult. I mean, it can be so difficult because we have no control over that other home, but we do have the ability to support our clarity around being open with each other. I think this is where that kind of what we spoke about earlier. I think it's so important, even more so when you have your kids living between two different families. At least it's especially important if there's any rift in the relationship and the other person may be saying damaging things about you. And so we keep our side of the street clean, and that we have control over. We don't stoop to the other person if that is happening. And then we keep our lines of communication so open that there's the freedom to come and express, even if the other person has said, don't say anything about what happens here to your mom. So, or the other way around to your dad. So I think that's really probably a distinct issue with the folks that I've worked with who are single parenting, is that they often have a whole other thing they're managing over here. And how they manage that is so impacted by the level of depth of the relationship they have with their kids for them to feel safe to talk about even the things that people say they shouldn't.
Totally. Yeah, you're so right. At the end of the day, we can only control how we are feeling and our emotional regulation. We cannot control what's happening somewhere else. And keeping the lines of communication open. And for single parents out there who are raising kids by themselves, I think self-care is what's important. So you don't snap, you don't get depleted, and you take the time for yourself to
build it in. Build it in like a hair appointment. Build it in like going to the dentist. Build it in as that important. It is that important.
What is one non-negotiable for yourself that you do, that you cannot live without?
A non-negotiable for me that in a relationship, you mean with the kids or something?
In general, in your day-to-day life.
In general, just my non-negotiable?
Yes.
I guess, what arises when you say that, the non-negotiable, is that I did grow up learning how to be more concerned with keeping the people around me regulated. And so I would be, I could say that I was betraying myself in service to superficial harmony in the outer world. And that muffling, that muting, that aspect is something I'm not willing to do anymore. That is a non-negotiable. I won't not say the thing, even if it catalyzes the other person into some explosion. I won't muffle myself in service to not having them explode. I'll say what needs to be said. I'll let them explode. I'll hold space for that. And when they've calmed down, and I may even say something along the lines of, once you're regulated and you're prepared for us to go a little deeper, I'll be here. I'm going to hold space for this. Because of course, what's been activated is their trauma. And what started was their trauma. And I can see that now as an adult and a practitioner, but I mean, I didn't see it growing up. And you develop these, we adapt. You know, we're humans. We adapt. It's amazing the stuff that we can adapt to. And a lot of us grew up with parents that were incredibly dysfunctional.
True. Thank
And
you.
it took us a long time to see it because part of the dysfunction is that we protect them from seeing their dysfunction. Right? It's the
We don't want to hurt other people's feelings.
We don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And we've been made to feel that we're responsible for their feelings. And so it's our job. I mean, you know, it's so complex. And it all happened when probably there was undifferentiated consciousness within us. We didn't even know where the lines were. Like, who are you and who am I and where's the line and what am I really? You know, it's all messed up.
Thank
So that's
you.
my non-negotiable.
I love it. Nobody ever mentioned that.
My
In the 5
non-negotiable.
years of running this podcast. That's the first.
Wow, I'm surprised to hear that.
But I think it's so important, you know, that you gotta, you know, be true to yourself. In the end of the day, you are the person who came here by yourself.
And to be able to say it, not from a place of anything, but I'm going to honor my inner sense of things. And I'm not going to betray my inner sense of things. I mean, self-betrayal is a big problem.
Yes, totally. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, as we're wrapping up, I guess, you know, another thing that Marshall Rosenberg taught me was, you know, this one kind of perspective that I carry with me all the time. I hope it'll carry with you and your audience as well. It's a good takeaway. And it's when you're in the midst of stuff and it's hard to do, it really is hard to do. See your children beautiful.
It's beautiful. Seeing them.
It takes a muscle. It takes a muscle to, in the midst of the tragic expression of their unmet needs and all the messy behaviors and the words and all the rest of it, to depersonalize and keep seeing past it all. See them beautiful. See them as those precious children that you love so much. And when they see it in your eyes, they'll begin to see themselves beautiful again.
Yeah. Look at everything through the lens of love.
Yes, it's true. It's compassion.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. If people would like
It's been
to
so fun. It's
connect,
lovely to be with you.
learn about you, where would they go?
So we will send you our quiz. We have a quiz, which is really fun. It's a parenting archetype quiz. And they can go to freeparentingbook.com and download 7 strategies to keep your relationship with your kids from hitting the boiling point. The website is consciousparentingrevolution.com. And if they go there, they can join my family Lifeline community where you can get a lifeline. In fact, you can get that support you're looking for from me, from the community, popping in, just saying, could really use a little empathy. Is anybody there available for, you know, some oxygen? Could I get an oxygen tank? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. I have a training, people who are really looking to repair relationships and or just have a way, because maybe they don't know how to do a guidance approach to parenting, since nobody else predominantly in the dominant culture does that. So it's something we get to learn.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice.
We'll include everything in episode notes. It's been awesome to have you, and thank you for creating Conscious Parenting Revolution. I think it's incredible.
So beautiful. Thank you, Irina. This has been a joy. Love talking with you.
Thank you.
That conversation with Katherine Sellery really hit home. It reminded me where I was 10 years ago, at rock bottom, anxious, trying to control everything on the outside, because I felt so disconnected on the inside. We often think parenting is about fixing behavior, but as we just heard, it's really about owning our patterns, not blaming ourselves, but understanding how our boundaries and our own nervous system impact our kids. The shift from correction to connection isn't a quick fix. It's a daily choice to stop reacting and start responding. It's about loving them, warts and all, so that they can see themselves as beautiful. If you've been holding it all together but feel like you're losing this bond, this is your sign. I want to know, did the concept of conscious parenting shift your perspective today? Comment yes, or share it with a woman who needs to hear this today.